Okay, welcome back. So what I want to do next is to talk about a fairly famous problem involving inequality that stays persistent over time. So before we do that, let's just have a quick recap. So what we've been working on is consumption preferences over time, and the sort of main idea that we're using is that people would like to have relatively smooth preferences over time. So by the way, I don't mean to say that, for example, so I do not mean to say that having a consumption of 200 and then 100 is worse than 100 and then 100. So it's always better to consume more. It's even better to consume a lot in total and have it spread out evenly. That's sort of the absolute best. Okay, so let's talk about this example. So in this example, we're going to use the same preferences. So we'll say that u of c1, c2 is equal to c1 plus root c2. And so here's the question that we're going to ask. So the idea is we're going to think about a person who is working for 2 periods. So, if you want, you can think about these 2 periods as lasting, say 20 years, 25 years, something like that. They don't necessarily have to just be 1 year. And so this person has a decision. And then the decision is they can spend 1 period getting an education, and then 1 period working, working as an educated person, or they can work for 2 periods as non-educated. Okay, so that is that's the sort of crux here. And so, of course, what we need to know is wages. So we're going to assume that if you work as someone without a wage, without an education, then your wage is 25. If you work, well, I guess let's say during your education, your wage is 1. So, the idea is you can still make a small amount of money while you're getting an education. And then if you do have an education, then your wage is going to be 64. Okay, so that's sort of the setup. And then, first of all, what we'll do is to look at the question of someone with no other assets. Meaning you just consume what you earn in each period. Okay, so if we were in a normal classroom at this point, I would ask you all to work in small groups on this problem. So what I would like you to do is to pause the video, give this some good thought. If you happen to be with someone else from the class, then that is excellent. And I would like you to just take 3 or 4 minutes like we would do in a normal classroom and talk with your neighbors, or if you don't have neighbors right now, then try to work through this problem on your own. Okay, so now we're back. Hopefully you have either solved this problem, which will be good, or you've given it some good thought and got your brain moving on it on your own before we talk about it. Obviously, either of those is great. The answer is not really what's important. I just want to make sure everybody is giving this problem some thought first. Okay, so here is what the person would do. So they would look at the utility of each. So the utility of no education. Well, first of all, we need to figure out just what they're going to consume without any education. Well, with no education, they're just going to get a wage of 25 in the first period and then a wage of 25 in the second period. So their utility would just be, maybe let's do one extra step in here. Oopsies. So we can say that this is the utility of 25 comma 25, which is root 25 plus root 25, which is 10. The utility of getting an education, on the other hand, is the utility, and then notice, by the way, what I'm writing in here is, so this is consumption, right? So I'm writing in consumption here rather than wages. In this particular problem, they're the same. But just remember that someone earns utility not from money they receive, but they earn utility from the stuff that they consume. Okay, so you would get you would consume 1 in the first period and then consume the whole 64 in the second period. And so this is root 1 plus root 64, which is 9. And so if this person has no other assets, no other income source, then they would choose no education. Okay, so that's the first piece. Then the second piece is that we want to say, hey, let's add in something to, capture the fact that, some people do have other assets to rely on. Whether that comes from family, whether it could come from some sort of money that had been earned earlier in life. Of course, most commonly, I think, would be family. But so let's think about that. So let's think about, so here we'll call this one number 1, and then this can be number 2. So suppose now, suppose someone has an inheritance of 24. And I want to be specific here and say that they can consume this 24 anytime. And so they can split it up if they want to. They can consume they can consume their whole inheritance in the first period, the whole thing in the second period. They can do whatever they want. So that's the idea. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, so this again, if we were in a classroom, is a time where I would pause and give everyone a chance to work on this in small groups. And so we'll do the same thing here. And I'm actually going to stop the video, and we'll be back in just a minute with the fourth video.